Thank you for joining us on this webinar. Today we'll be talking about payer perspectives and price transparency data with Mallow Consulting. So I'm happy to bring on Tammy Mallow of Mallow Consulting. If you could tell us a little bit about what you do and what you offer.
Great, thank you. Well, I appreciate you having me. I've been in the urgent care industry, the on-demand industry, for probably about 25 years now. Started out as an administrator for a group of clinics and watched that team grow from just one clinic to 12 or 13 when it was all said and done. And so I've been living in this world for a long time. Somehow over the years, I've kind of become the guru of all things around payers and payer relations and payer perspectives. And a big part of that is negotiating contracts, either out of the gate or renegotiating contracts, primarily around rates. And so, over the years, we've tried to gather that information in a lot of different ways. And finally, in the last year and a half, we actually have access to data that comes right from the payer. So we're able to, thank you to the CMS mandate that requires insurance companies and health systems to release this information. We're now able to look at rates by provider, by payer, on multiple levels. And so it's really, it's brought a whole new world, a whole new set of confidence when it comes to being able to compare rates among competitors and then take that to the payer to negotiate rates. And so I've been using the data for that. I've been using it for a lot of other things that we'll talk about today. And I've been working most closely with a group called After Transparency, and John Bruiser with After Transparency is going to join us, I think, in a few moments. And I'll let John talk more about his company, but I know for myself, because the data is so large, and John will talk a little bit about that, but because it is so large and so complex, it really has been, it's taken this relationship between me knowing the urgent care industry and contracting and how rates are put together with a company like After Transparency, who has the technology and the knowledge to pull that information out for us to blend those two experiences together to make sure that what we're giving to our clients is as accurate as it possibly can. And
that's wonderful. Yeah, I'll bring John on so he can share a little bit more about After Transparency. I know there's certainly sounds like an interesting and needed topic to discuss, and just kind of, as we said at the beginning, just make it more transparent, right? So John, welcome to the conversation.
Hi, nice to be here. Tammy said it really well. This data is incredibly hard to get to. The payer files are tremendously large. It takes, a lot of, innovative technology to be able to pull that down and make sense of it. But once you get the data, the files, that's just part of it, right? Now, what are you going to do with it? And so you have to be able to make sense of it, understand how to apply it, and then leverage it to create value. And that's where our partnership with people like Tammy come in, because she's got such deep experience in the industry. She's really passionate about seeing our data put to use. And so it's the power of the data that we can provide, and then how we support and work with partners like Tammy that really creates values for our customer.
No, that's fantastic. So I know one of the key things we wanted to certainly discuss is how do we get this data out to those that need it? And primarily, as you had shared, the urgent care community and industry. So if you could share a little bit more about that, how you've kind of collated all this information and put it into these digestible chunks, if you will, to make sense of.
I like that, digestible chunks, because I've said they come out in machine readable files, and we need them in human readable files. And it's just that simple. We, as an urgent care industry, we predominantly are owned and operated by individuals who work in the clinic. They run the business. They may be physicians or nurse practitioners or PAs that own the business and actually see patients too. So we have enough to do without trying to figure all of this out. And so that's why, we use groups like John's to do the hard work for us. But getting it into the hands of the masses, and just a side note, I work in the urgent care world, primary care, urgent care for the most parts, and behavioral health. But this data is available for the entire medical community. So any specialty that has a tax ID and an NPI and contracted with payers, this information is out, just to be clear.
Yeah, we work with providers from the largest organizations to the smallest organizations. So yeah, that's a great point, Tammy.
Yeah, exactly. I get asked that question a lot, is this exclusive to urgent care? But not at all. But the point of getting it into the hands of the people that need it, insurance companies are not always our best friends, and I don't know why or how but it's often difficult to work with a payer. It can be difficult to get their time and attention so that we can actually negotiate. I mean, that can be very difficult. And so I don't know if there's a hidden agenda, if you will, on why the payers have not advertised that this information is available. I would guess that it's probably not to their benefit for this information to be available. It was a mandate, so they're required to do so. So, I found out about it from a client saying, hey, have you ever heard of this? And I looked into it. So it wasn't something that we got this bulletin saying, guess what, now you can get this information. So getting it into the hands of those that need it really has become my life's mission over the last couple of years. My role in urgent care, I've been, like I said, an operator, but more than anything else, I've been a consultant. I've been with speaking on behalf of the Urgent Care Association for the last 15 or 20 years. I really like bringing information, to our members, and then even, to those in the industry that are not members. But I think it's been about a year and a half ago, I spoke at the Urgent Care Association's national conference. I do that every year, but this particular year, I was asked to speak to the Strategic Advisory Group, which is a fairly small group of decision makers that have to own a certain number of urgent cares to be a part of this. So it's kind of the movers and shakers, if you will, in the industry. And that's where I first introduced this. And that's actually how I got to know John. And I was really surprised at the people in that room that didn't know this information was available. And I even felt like after I had my 20 or 30 minutes discussion, there were still some like deer in the headlight looks, or like, wait a minute, I think that's surely not what she just said. She didn't really say that my rates are out there for the world to see and their rates are out there for me to see. And so that just really propelled me into what I've been working on since then, and that's just getting the information out. And so I have private clients. I'm a consultant. That's how I make my living. But I also try to share through white papers, through LinkedIn, through just conversations like this to really let people know it's out there. And then upcoming is the NERUCA, which is the Northeastern Urgent Care Association conference, where I'm speaking about this. And I'm also hosting a panel, bringing in some other consultants who use the information. That's in September 22nd through the 24th. I did the same thing for the California Urgent Care Association last year. So the association's been really good about trying to get this information out as well, but it has been a struggle.
Yeah, no, and I know it's a conversation that John and I have had in the past as well, that exactly what you said, Tammy, of a lot of people are very surprised that this is out there. And I know people that are, in the orthotics and prosthetics industry who do reimbursement and focus on that as a profession, they themselves were shocked that this is available. And so it's, it just speaks to the need for this, and also how hush hush it still is. So I'm glad that, people like you guys are talking about it and bringing it to the forefront, and just making this more available and more palatable. But I guess one of the questions that I'd like to ask is, how frequently is this updated? Just so those listening in know, is it just they updated it once, it was released, and then until another mandate comes down, nothing will be done about it? Or is it periodically, is this periodically intended to be updated?
Yeah, I'll let John answer that.
Yeah, so the payers are required by law to post this every month. And typically what
Okay.
we see, if a contract changes, say July 1st, it's going to be posted in the July or August file. So 6 to 8 weeks kind of delay. Compare that to other data sources like claims data that's backwards looking, right? So usually the previous year at best, or the hospital price transparency, which has got a lot of attention as well, and kind of, kept that attention away from the payer price transparency, which is part of the reason, Linda, I think that, it's kind of going under the radar and still not widely known. Hospital price transparency is only posted once a year, so it can be as old as a year old, but you're actually using it. We recommend to our clients, especially in urgent care, that at least once a year, get your hands on it. Sometimes twice or quarterly, if you really want to keep your eyes on the market. So that's generally what we advise our clients. There's no real need to get every single month, but we make that available, and you can see through those changes over time and trends, and really keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on in the market.
No, that's great. Yeah.
Interestingly, when I first knew that it was published so frequently, I thought, well, that's nice, but I think once a year is fine, because at that time we rarely had changes because payers don't initiate change in rates. You may have some escalators built into a contract, but otherwise they don't reach out to you every year and say, guess what, you're getting a raise. So you have to be proactive. And a lot of groups, like I said earlier, they're busy doing other things, or they just get defeated because they think it's just not worth the time. I might get a small increase if I get anything at all. There have been payers who've actually given decreases if you ask for a renegotiation. So people have been very hesitant. But now, and I'm going to actually refer to a slide, Linda, that I have pulled up. Now we're actually really starting to see some success. And when I speak at NERUCA in a couple of weeks, this is one of the slides that I'm going to show. And this is just a draft right now, so forgive any errors in punctuation or whatever. But the point is, we're seeing some positive effects. And so because we're seeing these positive effects where a group might be getting moving from a $130 case rate to a $150 case rate, or moving from a case rate to fee for service, then it's important to see the new data, at least on a quarterly basis, because it's finally changing. We're starting to see that needle move in our favor. And so I no longer feel that way, that I only need to see it once a year. I need to see it often so I can see what those changes are. And John, I believe that with some of the work that we're doing with Juicebox, we're actually able to see some data, some graphics that show us change in the market between one quarter to the next. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. What we try to do is, as Tammy mentioned, not just make the data accessible, but make it usable and easy to see. So we're able to show you trends and changes within the market really easily. If you get that data updated every quarter, it's amazing what you learn. You might be happy with a negotiation you did last year, but then see that somebody down the street got a much higher one. You might realize that, oh my gosh, my rates have changed because I have an escalator, and you're not adjusting your billing. You may not realize that there are things happening in your market that are different than what you thought. That's all the information that we try to make really easy and something you're able to see on a regular basis. To Tammy's point earlier, one of the things that we love when we talk to our customers is they talk about the change they go through from kind of playing off defense and not really taking action to being very action focused and engaged with the payer and playing a little bit of offense. And so in some cases, just simply asking with using data can be really, really powerful in helping get an increase. But you definitely go in there more informed with some very clear information that comes from the payers themselves, right?
Yeah, no, and it was great to get a glimpse at what people can expect at NERUCA. I know that it'll be you'll be on a panel discussing a lot of these aspects.
Right.
Yeah.
The theme for NERUCA this year is growth. So it's ready, set, grow. What can we do to grow our practice? And, we came out of COVID, and I think that the air has cleared a little. And so now we're ready to get back to work. And what can we do to be proactive instead of reactive? And so I built in that presentation multiple use cases to help you grow. So we think about it from contract negotiation. That's a natural, obviously we want to use it for that, but there are other things too. If you're growing in terms of entering new markets, we're using that data to show us what could we expect from a rate perspective in those new markets. So when I say payer perspective, that's what I'm referring to. So what if I'm moving into a new market? There are other consultants in the industry that really focus on location, and location obviously is critical. But before you even select a location, it's just critical. There has to be another more alarming word to use than critical. It's imperative that you know how the payers are going to treat you there. What are the going rates in the market? Are there any barriers to network access? So maybe some of those insurance companies aren't accepting new urgent care centers into their market. So that would be obviously very important to know. You don't want to purchase a building or lease a building and then find out the going rate's $90 and United Healthcare is closed, or that the credentialing requirements mean you have to have a physician on site at all times, and I'm a nurse practitioner model. So there are a lot of things outside of just location that, again, that's kind of the message that I'm trying to bring. So mergers and acquisitions, looking at the actual contracted rates for those groups that you're considering merging with or acquiring, that's available to you now. Of course, they're going to share information with you, but I think that you get a second layer of confidence if you're able to see it right from the payer as well. So you can kind of match those things up. John and I get really creative. We meet at least once a week and we talk about use cases, and we get pretty excited about that. And I always like to open it up to the audience too. So when I'm speaking at a conference, as given this information, what are some other things that you think about how we could use the data? And one idea that was brought to me was, if you are an EMR company or a revenue cycle management company, having access to this kind of information to then guide your sales team. So if you're an RCM company, you generally bill, your revenue really comes from a percentage of your client's revenue. Usually, percentage is irrelevant, but you get a percentage. And so if you were sending your salespeople out to various states, and you knew that in Missouri the NRV is $130, but in Wisconsin it's $180, you would be, obviously you would want to send your sales team to the 180 market as opposed to the 130. So there's so many different ways to use it. And I wake up in the night making notes, thinking of other ways to use it.
There are a couple of use cases that come to mind. Like, we love talking to our customers and getting their feedback. And one, when we gave a new market assessment, it had some nuances to it, right? Different metro areas, kind of a rural area that had, some nuance to it. And we were able to help them take what was a 5-month process to get kind of average information, get really specific in a matter of minutes, and to be able to see that entire market very clearly, validate their assumptions, but reduce that time just to get that insight and make it much more precise. It's really fun to watch that time saved, that effort saved, and being able to make better, faster decisions as a result of that. That's really exciting to see, to Tammy's point. And the use cases that they keep coming up with, one of the things we love is being able to help communicate what you're seeing, right? So making it easy to express visually to other stakeholders within an organization. If you got a leadership team or a board of directors you need to talk to, even taking it into the payers. Tammy does a great job of really using some of our visuals to go into the payers and clearly articulate her argument about why those increases should be something that are realized. So,
well, and just those use cases and success stories, whatever you want to call them, it just allows those receiving this new information, this new to them information. It allows them to kind of, you always want to see yourself, right? Talking about all this data is great, but until you really put it into the perspective of those that are in this day to day and tell them this is how it can affect you, that's when everybody's eyes go, oh my God. Like, really?
The thing I like about working with some of our urgent care customers is they usually come to us and they say, well, I've always heard that this has been true, or the payer has always told me. And so it's almost like a challenge to see if we can prove
really
or disprove
turn it around.
And almost every single time, I think Tammy would tell you, there's an asterisk to it, right? There's something that's gained or learned in the market that wasn't quite consistent with the story that we've always believed. And so that's the exciting thing. Just knowing where you stand, like you said, Linda, knowing exactly where you stand is
Right.
really.
Yeah, some really glaring examples that I think would be important to people that are watching this is there are certain markets where payers will say everyone gets, I'm going to make up a number, everyone gets $110. We never give any less, we never give any more. Well, now we're able to see very clearly that that's just 100% not accurate. To me, that was a big one, and a pleasant surprise, because now I'm able to share that with my clients, and we go in and armed with that information. Another interesting thing is we talk about, those of us on the receiving end not having been aware that the data was available until just recently. But interestingly enough, a lot of the representatives who we are connected with at a payer level to do the negotiation aren't aware either. And so we've had that element of surprise for a while, which has been good. It's been very good for us, and kind of taken them by surprise that we actually have this data that comes from their own company, but they just weren't made aware of it either.
Yeah. No, that's, knowledge is definitely power.
That's true.
And so as we kind of wrap this up, is there anything that you want to leave listeners with, any other slides or anything to kind of close this out, or anything about NERUCA?
Yeah, why don't I share? I have a slide pulled up now just to kind of pull this all together.
And I'll
so
hide
this
it
is
for a second. There we
okay.
go.
Yeah. So this is an example of how to take the price transparency data and pull it together with some other things that are important when you're making a decision in urgent care. So in this example, we pulled the top payers by covered lives. And so this tells me that, for example, Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina has 637,000 covered lives in their commercial, which makes up 15% of their business. And from John's data, I'm able to confidently say that then the net revenue per visit for those commercial products are $135. So I divide it out by commercial, Medicare, Medicaid, TRICARE, et cetera. We look at the market share, the net revenue per visit based on transparency data. And then I layer that in with whether or not they're publishing that they're closed to new urgent care centers. So I just wanted to kind of give you a visual on how I pull all of that together with the price transparency data in helping clients make a decision whether or not to go into a new market. So for this client, they would have to make a decision. Am I willing to forego, 5% of volume available to me in that market at around $140 on average per visit? Is it worth me going into that market or not?
Yeah, no, it's definitely, those are the facts that everybody wants to see, right? And those details that you can really hone in and make those sound and strategic business decisions. So I'm glad we had this conversation, and I know folks can see you at NERUCA. You'll be part of a panel discussing some of these nuances and others, I'm sure. But thank you for your time, and thank you for anybody listening. You can find Tammy Mallow on LinkedIn and reach out to her there, and as well as After Transparency. So thank you very much, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks,
Linda.